Okay, so a lot of you have started on these just for my own curiosity. Did anyone read this question up here? They think they might know an answer? Maybe the question doesn't make any sense. Like Cowboys ends in S, that mascot. Twins ends in S. Yankees ends in S. Capitals, if you want to go hockey. Well, there's an NCAA team. There's two Major League Baseball teams. There's one NBA team. I can't think of any in the NFL. Okay, there's two then. I didn't think of the Thunder. Say that again. Utah Jazz. That doesn't end in S. See, you learn something all the time. Should we learn about pepsin today? Not Pepsi, not pepsin. But all right. But anyway, with that, okay. How many of you think or feel that you're getting better at maybe solving some of these problems? Okay. Now, what I want you to do is just think about the first few days when you came in here and you had to solve these velocity problems. And some of you, you may chose, well, I just punched in my calculator and that's what we got. We said, please don't do that because you're setting up yourself for bad habits. Okay? So with that, a lot of you are starting to feel maybe more comfortable. And if you're working together on a lot of these, that's fine. But remember, okay, you're responsible for this information once we get to a problem quiz or that of a evaluation. So what I want you to do is notice it's not that the first and second page, maybe the wording is a little tricky, but especially on the first page, okay, when it talks about what would this individual weight be. When we talk about a person's weight, if it's not pounds, we can also say it's in newtons. So from yesterday, how would we measure someone's weight in newtons? It's a force, that's right. But what's true about a force? And before you answer that, just think of what two characteristics are in common with a force that we know. What does that equal? A mass times what? Okay, so what do we know here on Earth when it comes to acceleration? Say that again. It's 9.8. So our weight in newtons on Earth, we take our mass times 9.8. Okay? So weight can be measured in newtons. That's my point. So when it's talking about this, I want to say astronomer, that if she has a mass of 50 kilograms, it asks what's her weight. So if she has a mass of 50, what's her weight going to be in newtons? You're going to take that 50 times what? 9.8, because that's what the acceleration due to gravity is here on Earth. Then I want to say maybe ask a question about, okay, now this astronomer is 6,500 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Is the gravity from the Earth going to be more or less at 6,500 kilometers? It's going to be a lot less. Is this going to change? No. The acceleration's different. Her mass is still the same. So the force or weight will be different as well. So I just wanted to maybe point some of that out a little bit here before we get going too far. Then what I want you to do, okay, is maybe when you get to problems 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, those are probably a lot more difficult. So maybe it would be to your benefit to pick out 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15. And I don't have a paper in front of me, so I don't know what it would say. So who's your spokesman for today? We're offering help, but going once, going twice. No help? We're giving you that opportunity. I said we work on 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, or 15. So by not saying anything, you're telling me that you don't want any help on that. So going once. Okay, so what does number 11 say? Again, I don't have a paper in front of me. Okay, now just one person. One of you two. I don't care which. Just okay. Is that it? Okay. So a few things that we can take from that is, now that you've read the problem, what should you do? You're probably starting to get yourself into that habit. Just like kind of a short story on this, if you were to look close at some of the jackets and some of these collared shirts that I have. I've never worn this shirt before because it was just done not too long ago, because it used to say Hurley, Marion Cobras underneath. Okay, that was from a co-op, used to coach football, an assistant coach in a different school district. Okay, so being the junior high coach, whether at any sport, volleyball, football, basketball, and even when you're talking about elementary, when you're learning your instrument that you play, it's those fundamentals that start to, if you have a nice wide base, you can start to build on top of one another. Okay, so every day, what do? We work on tackling drills. That's the very first thing that we do. Yeah, you're going to stretch. Why do we got to work on tackling? Well, you ever seen some of these NFL players? Yeah, that some of their tackling that they try to do up around the top here, it's bad habits. Okay, so now that we're this far into the school year, we want to do the same thing. We want to start good habits. So a lot of you are starting to do that once you've read the problem, a lot of you are answering it the same. What should you do next? You say, write down what you know. So what do we know in this problem? Well, what's the velocity then? 10,000, no, not 10,000. That'd be one fast ball, wouldn't it? 10.25 meters per second. Now, let's say sometimes what can happen is you might get to the next problem and it'll say, from the previous problem, it may say, well, what was the force? Well, you're going to have to find an acceleration, but my point is, we're not too worried about the velocity here, but if we really, really want to be specific, what velocity is this? It's a final velocity, okay? So sometimes when it comes to these momentum problems, maybe it's just a good idea to put VF there for velocity final. What else do we know in the problem? Okay, now, from yesterday, we learned something about pressure, right? That also, you may choose to use the variable P. So that's why we need to keep them separate. We're not putting a line or an face or a straight line over top. So we know this is momentum, and that was, if I'm hearing that correctly, 10,028, correct? 10,228? 10,228.58 kilograms dash meter. 50. Okay? All right. So now, what's the question ultimately asking for? The mass. So by not going any further, where do you see these three variables in the same place? Which formula? Your momentum formula. So we know, what does momentum equal? Those two, correct? So anytime you have three variables, you have to know two of them. And we know, by looking at this now, we know the final velocity and the momentum. So how do we proceed further then by using that formula? We have our information here. Here's our formula. So what do we do next? Okay? Okay? Because that's what the product was. So we're just putting that variable or that number where it's in our formula. What's on the right-hand side then? The velocity. We don't know the mass, but we do know the velocity. So what function are you doing between those two numbers and variables? Oh, oops. I was just seeing if anybody was paying attention. Can't get anything past you people, right? So what function are we doing with that number and variable? You're multiplying. How do we undo multiplication? Division. So what we're saying is, how do we get this m by itself now? Just tell me. Right. See, you're saying it correctly. And sometimes it's hard to visualize that in your head without writing it down. But you are correct. You are dividing the momentum by the velocity. And sometimes it's just easier to look at your page and see once what you're doing. They canceled each other. Now the mass is going to be whatever that is divided by that. Now we got the mass. Okay? So we're just trying to hopefully make some of these problems a little easier, but please get into those good habits of writing down what you know. That way, okay, when you have to solve for one variable, put it into another formula until you can finally reach the end. You will make things a heck of a lot easier on yourself should you choose to do that. Okay? So what we were going to do was I was going to assign worksheet 2 today, but we're kind of changing things up because and we probably needed more practice on Monday, okay? Because and I know what it's like being in high school. Trust me, I went to high school once. Your parents went to high school once. Heck, even Mr. Hammer went to high school once. Might have been a long time ago, like it was for myself and your parents, but maybe the expectations might be hopefully somewhat similar. But and I know from experiences what it's like. You don't want to be the one that asks perhaps a silly question, or you know how many. I was picking on one of the senior guys in zoology. So, and maybe it pertains to some of you basketball players, okay? And I've seen this happen before, where in basketball, you're down by 1, you get the ball down on the low key, you go up, and maybe you make a good move, you get fouled, it doesn't go in, but you got 2 shots coming, but there's only half a second left. So you got 2 shots and you're down by 1. Okay? No one wants to be the one to step up and miss both. Can that happen? Well, yeah, it might happen. But you can't focus on the idea of, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss both of these, because then chances are it's going to go up and clang off the rim. And what's that called? It starts with the letter B. Ends in K. A brick. You don't want to be the one that throws up enough bricks you can make a house. Yeah? That was another funny, by the way. Yeah. Feel free to slap your knee. Yeah. Yeah. So, again, that's just human nature. It's all part of growing up. Is it easy to do? No. But can you? Well, of course you can. Trust me. You will be okay if you get embarrassed in high school. It's going to be okay. Yes. Per second. That 4 meters per second is the same as saying 4 meters per second squared. So that is an acceleration. Okay? And did anyone drive to school today? Okay? Your car is stationary right now. So what does that mean? Yeah. I hope it's not moving. If it's moving, that would be bad. Why is that? Because you might run into something. Or no, not you. Your car might run into something. Okay? So, has that happened before? Maybe yes, I don't know. I've probably done that before too. Okay. Well, regardless, okay? You've got time to work on these, and we will continue with this tomorrow.